And this is really their story. This is the story of incoming freshmen to outgoing seniors. And we've selected a few students that we kind of follow through the course of a year, what they've had to overcome to get there, to stay there, and to graduate from there. And in that journey, as you might imagine, in any collegiate journey, you're going to have struggles along the way. There's going to be kids that are homesick. There's going to be kids that are, especially if they're performers, that have body awareness. Am I too fat? Am I too skinny? Do I fit in with the rest of these Polynesian kids that are so big? Even though I'm Polynesian, I'm smaller. There's going to be a whole host of issues, balancing school, balancing their social life with, they got to be able to PCC to perform. And so we really get behind, we kind of take a look behind that curtain and explore little pieces of the night show, for example, but we spend more time behind the stage because there's a completely different story going on.
It is time for another episode of The Cultural Hall. Glad to welcome back in Blair Treu. Now, here's the deal. You have to be nearly a lifer with pioneer stock of The Cultural Hall to remember when Blair was on before. It was episode 145 that he was a part of, and this episode is number 905. So September 26th of 2014, Blair and we sat down and we talked about the Meet Those That Shall Not Be Named because it is a win for Satan. And now he is back talking about an entirely different project. Plus, I mean, that's a whole 11 years of living since we've chatted. I think we have a bit to catch up on.
Yeah, and if you don't remember me, I certainly wouldn't. It's not like I'm the most memorable guest, so I wouldn't blame anybody if they don't remember that.
Oh,
So,
I don't say that about my friend Blair. Come on now, put people in context for you. You are, as Wikipedia would tell me, a public figure. As I know, you are a director. But beyond that, give me a little context, a little meat for people that are listening.
well, I'm a dad. I've got four kids. They've all grown up and they're out of the house and are raising families of their own for the most part. Uh, and we all find ourselves back here in Utah now.
Hmm.
So professionally, I started off, I went to school at BYU way back in the day. If I must say the year, I graduated in 85. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's got to be before you were born, right? So,
I appreciate that you said that, but no, it is not. But a good long time ago.
okay. Then I was able to, I kind of luckily found my way into Disney and worked there for a while, and then started my freelance directing career on small projects, and just they eventually bloomed into feature films, and then found myself lived in LA for a while, and then we decided to move here, raise our family. And then I just commuted there. So I worked in episodic television as well as, was doing commercials and feature films, mostly of kind of the for the family ilk, so Disney Channel movies, Nickelodeon, that kind of stuff. I want to make stuff that my kids could watch, that I could watch with them, and it was great because I had kind of a built-in focus group. I would watch them watch my movies, and I would see where when they got bored or where it was holding their interest, and then because it's going to come out, I might as well just get it out now. I mean, I also did Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, live action Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, because people always tease me about that because that's what they remember,
Sure.
and I think of it as that was rent money.
Yeah.
So
That was being able to continue to live where we wanted to live and be able to eat money.
that's right. That's right. So from that to, Meet the Mormons is quite a transition
So
to
let
then.
me ask you this
Sure.
though. If you were to look at your life and be like, the thing that I am most known for, going around in all the different circles, maybe combining them or whatever, what is the project or thing that you would maybe be most known for?
It would probably be in sections. So if you were a kid and you grew up in the 90s, you were watching the Disney Channel, it would be something along the lines of either Paper Brigade or Wish Upon a Star with Katherine Heigl. That's because she's she was a young actress, and that's kind of was the movie that kind of broke her out.
Hmm.
And she's gone on to do some great things, Grey's Anatomy, and she's got a whole bunch of movies under her belt as well. But that was really her first big leading role, was Wish Upon a Star. So a lot of kids will remember that. Um, Little Secrets with was another one. Paper Brigade. I mean, there's a whole bunch of kid movies. So, when people ask me, so what movies have you done that I'd seen? I always have to kind of throw in the little asterisk. Well,
Sure.
Disney Channel fan, and most people that I associate with, no, they weren't. So then you have to transition. Well, are you a member of the church? Are you? And if they are, then I go back to Meet the Mormons. That was one. And I've certainly worked on a lot of campaigns for the church. If you were a missionary, if you're serving as a missionary, one that I'm actually that most people don't know about, but I'm really quite proud of is the safety zone.
Okay.
Because missionaries who are serving, they are required to watch it. And we took the most boring topic, missionary safety,
Hmm.
and we turned it into something that is really quite fun. It's kind of it's a spinoff of an ESPN talk show where we have hosts that banter back and forth, and then we show clips, and it's a really fun way to get missionaries to be safe. Now, I know that sounds like, are you kidding me? Missionary safety from a feature film but I'm really proud of that because it actually, we look at the numbers and it moved the needle pretty significantly. So accidents are down, uh, missionary deaths are down,
Hmm.
electrocutions. I mean, they're all down significantly. So I'm really proud of that project. And that was something that I did a while back. So if you're a missionary serving or have just returned home, you've probably seen that. And so those are the kinds of things that I do in between the bigger projects, the ones that really fulfill me, like the one I just finished,
And
sharing
and
Aloha.
we're gonna talk all about it. Your latest, what you're here to at least in part talk about is sharing Aloha. I wanted to start this episode out by saying brothers and sister Aloha, and then making everyone say Aloha back. But I was like,
Aloha.
I'm betting that people have done that already, and it was a little bit of low hanging fruit. I'm not sure, so we'll get into that. Um, I guess the obvious question for me would then be, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite? I know you have four children and you have a favorite one of those. So what is your favorite project you've worked on?
Well, for different reasons, right? Because some film directors find themselves working exclusively in documentary, others in scripted. And since
Hmm.
my training was in scripted, meaning, by definition, feature or episodic television, something where you're working from a script, I'd have to categorize that as well. I'd probably the funnest project to make was probably Wish Upon a Star or Paper Brigade back in the day, the Disney Channel days. They were hard to make, but they were a lot of fun to make.
Hmm.
Little Secrets was another one that was a lot of fun. It's hard. And documentary wise, the most fulfilling was probably on the documentary side was probably Meet the Mormons.
Hmm.
But I think that's going to be overtaken by the one I'm on now. But because the one I'm on now, I can't speak to because it hasn't really come out yet and people haven't had a chance to be exposed to it yet.
Right.
And so it hasn't lived its full shelf life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let me
So
ask you
that's
this.
probably
Let me ask you about this about all of the work done. I sort of made a joke about the meet the those who shall not be named because it's a win for Satan. Tremendous amount of work,
yeah.
traveling all over, very well done. And for a time in the church, Meet the Mormons, replaced the Joseph Smith story at the Joseph Smith Memorial Building in the big theater, and you'd watch it, and it was a missionary piece, so well done. And then we have a change of guard, whom I sustain as a prophet called by God. But all of that, we went, all right, well, I guess we're done with that film. Go ahead and take the proofs and we can burn those because that ain't ever seen the light of day. What was that response like for you?
I got a lot of questions about it. And I would jokingly say, oh, we're just going to rename it Meet the Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hmm.
But the reality is that we did some follow-up pieces to that. And they each have, even if you look at Meet the Mormons today, and it's still up on it ran on Netflix for a long time, and it's still up on YouTube. You can find it. The stories actually within themselves actually dispel, and they're still in line with what we believe today. They
Hmm.
talk about Mormons as a nickname.
Hmm.
And it brings it up quite in a number of places throughout that film where, hey, that's just a nickname that we're known by, but in reality, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it is talked about, and I feel badly that because of its title, it's kind of been deep sixed and put in the vaults of, the Granite Mountain. I'm being facetious, of course, but I mean, there's still some DVDs out there. I think they're mostly probably whatever's left over that I might have in my shelves downstairs basement. But it had it fortunately before that reemphasis on the name, which I also sustained, by the way, uh, wholeheartedly. In fact, I wasn't thrilled with the name of the movie. I didn't name the movie, but I wasn't thrilled with that name initially. But nevertheless, I felt badly that it was kind of deep sixed all of a sudden because of
Mhm.
that name change. But I get it. But fortunately, it had already kind of had its run. It was out for a couple of years
Mhm.
before that reemphasis occurred. And so I think it had a chance to do most of the good that it was going to do, because every film has a shelf life, and things age just in the way we tell stories, the filmic language we use, the pacing that we use. I mean, you look at it now and I look at it now and I think, yeah, there's some things I could have done to maybe quicken the pace, but that's more how much we've changed since it was made. You look at some of your favorite movies back in the 80s and 90s or 2000, and the pacing is just so much faster today.
Sure.
So, and hairstyles change and clothing. So it's a given that there's only going to be a limited shelf life. And I think we got about 90% of the good use out of that film before it was kind of put to bed.
Let me ask you this about I think film and certainly we've noticed this in shorter film, YouTube and even YouTube shorts and TikToks and things like that. The ability that film has to be able to tell stories. I know they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but it is it is tremendous the way that we can read something and not get it and not get it and not get it and not get it and not get it. And then we see a 15-second video clip and be able to do it. The response or be able to get it, but then the responsibility of that created the 15-second, like that to me seems like you are then molding how people would interpret whatever the thing is that you're putting into video. That's a tremendous amount of responsibility, especially when you're talking about something like your faith that you know deem to be so very important. How are you able to accept that responsibility and move forward?
Well, I think it's the medium. Of course, I don't take it personally. It's not, I'm lucky that I get to work in that medium.
Hmm.
It's not, there's no credit to me that we're able to have that kind of power. It's just the power of the medium itself. So
Sure.
when I'm here talking with you, it's one thing if I couldn't see you, and I was just hearing your voice,
Mhm.
and fortunately you've got a voice for radio, right? You got a great voice. I make a certain value judgment on what you sound like and the way you present yourself. But when that opens up and I can see a picture of you, now it's a different judgment altogether. I
Sure.
see what you look like. And so, but with to your question, the responsibility, it is a tremendous responsibility. And I have often thought that once I'm done with this, I might be involved in more of a media literacy campaign.
Mm.
What people don't realize is that in the United States, we're supposed to be the leader of the free world, but compared to all other industrialized nations, we are way behind in what's called media literacy, and there's a reason for that. So media literacy, by definition, by my definition, might be that, are we aware of how the media impacts us? Are we aware that the television commercials that we see, the TikToks we see, the reels that we see, are we aware of how they impact us, and that every movie that we see, every shot, every sound effect, every piece of music is there by choice, doesn't just happen. Somebody is there pulling those levers and manipulating us to feel certain things. We watch a TV commercial. I want to be on the beach drinking beer with my friends like that. I want to
Mhm.
drive a car like that. I want to dress like that, right? Well, we're so far behind because for years we've been the leader in output in media, and other countries that are kind of behind us to some extent with the development of their media have spent a large amount of time in their schools teaching kids about media literacy, because much of what they see is Americanized television.
Mhm.
And so they have to teach them. Now, this may not be the way it is in America, and certainly not the way it is here. So when you watch Baywatch, okay, people get the impression down south of the border that Baywatch may be, hey, that's Southern Cal and that's the way we are. Well, that's just a little teeny slice of that, but that's the impression they come away with. So those countries that haven't been as developed as we are have not spent, or they spent a lot more time on media literacy, teaching their kids to be a lot more cognizant of, okay, that's one point of view. There may be other point of views, and I'm just going to keep my ears and eyes up and be aware of that there are other point of views out there, and I'm not going to just hook, line, and sinker buy everything that I'm seeing. And I think American children are a little more at risk than perhaps those of other nations that have that media literacy training, but we don't. So,
Well, and to kind of marry that with our faith, why not a from a faith-based media literacy? You are hereby called, Blair. There you go. Once you get done working, look for
yeah,
that email from downtown Salt Lake, hereby called to help members of the church learn about media literacy. Because if we don't do it, look no further than present day as to the effects of not being media literate.
that's right. Well, and you raised the question, which is a good thing. People need to be raising those questions. Hey, is the media that I'm watching? I've had my own personal philosophy, and this has kind of been a guiding light for me. And I don't mean to sound, I don't want to come off holier than thou or anything. I think that there's nothing wrong with making a piece of media that is strictly for the sake of entertainment, because commerce makes the world go round. People need
Sure.
to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. But media should also do no harm. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of harmful stuff out there, especially for kids. So my kind of guiding principle has been, okay, is the project I'm about to do, does it check that box of doing no harm to kids? And there's a lot of silly movies out there, kid movies that kind of make the parents look stupid, like the kids are going to save the day. And
Mhm.
I just don't think that's realistic. That kids may like that, but it's kind of like cold cereal on Saturday morning. I'm going to have my cold cereal, but it's not going to be very satisfying. I'm going to get my sugar rush, and I'm going to be hungry before noon, as opposed to having something a little healthier to eat. So it's not like we have to cram values down their throat, but we just can't. We just don't want to do harm to kids. Now, coupled with, if we can do something that's good and it's uplifting at the same time as entertaining, then that checks all the boxes for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think we should take a quick break. When we come back in the second block, I want to talk about sharing Aloha. And it has, although not been made completely publicly, there are people whom have seen it. I would love to know what that experience was like as you kind of put your baby out into the world, how we're going to be able to see it in a bigger way, and kind of the reason why. Why did we do this project? We'll come back and get into all that coming back in the second block of the Cultural Hall. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the Cultural Hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com. Here in the second block of the Cultural Hall, remember, you can always send us an email. That email inbox always open, contact@theculturalhall.com. If you are like, man, I remember Blair from the first time around, great to revisit with him, you can send that email. If you are asking, wait a minute, you guys were around in 2014? Yes, we were, but you can send an email about that. Or if you have other great guests, suggestions, anything that you would like us to know, contact@theculturalhall.com. That is the email address. Would love to get those. And oftentimes you should know we will share mostly the entirety of your email on the show. So if you do not want that to occur, in the very first line of the email, say something like, I do not want you to share my email on the show. Otherwise, we likely will. It has happened more than once, Blair, that I will read the entire email and then get to the bottom and it will say, please do not share my email. And because I am not one to edit, I'll just go, yeah, sorry about that, whoever this
Yeah.
person was. So contact@theculturalhall.com. Sharing Aloha was premiered at the Zion Independent Film Festival.
Yeah.
Tell
And it
me
was a
about
great
that
event.
experience.
Oh, it was, I try to look at it kind of from an outside my body kind of experience, because I'm close to the film. I'm biased, right? So
Mhm.
everything that I see is going to be exaggerated, especially if it's positive. But honestly, it really was It was pretty amazing because we had a packed theater. It played at the Zion Indie Film Fest down in Orem in the Sierra Theater, which, as I understand it, is the largest in terms of seat capacity, largest theater in Utah. There's 700 seats in that theater. It's the
Oh
old
my
Art
gosh.
Deco style, and it was packed. I mean, it's pretty. There's going to be some empty seats up front and in the corners and stuff, but it was pretty full. And so to see it now for the first time with an audience was really amazing. And amazing is just kind of cliche. It was amazing.
Yep.
It was an amazing experience. People loved it. They laughed. They cried. It was kind of an electric feeling in the room. So that
So
just made me feel like, okay, we got something here.
let's get into the project a little bit. If people, we both know what the project is and what it's about, but if you'll allow me, I'm going to kind of walk alongside you as though I'm listening to this and going, huh? So what is it
Right.
about?
It's a behind the scenes look. We kind of pull back the curtain on what makes the PCC tick.
That is the
PCC,
Polynesian
Polynesian
Cultural
Cultural
Center. Yep.
Yes, in Laie, Hawaii. Um, so a little bit of background on it. So there's about, it gets about 1 million visitors a year. It employs about 800 students per school year, in semesters. And it exists really for the purpose of providing work for the students to go to school at the adjacent BYU Hawaii. I learned how to say Hawaii. I used to say Hawaii.
Hmm.
It's now Hawaii because that's
Yeah.
the way you're supposed to say it.
Oh yeah. And then you look like the person that is just home from their mission and everyone's like, that we all, the rest of us still say Hawaii, right? And you're like, nope, I'm committed to saying it the right way.
I am committed because that's the kind of impact they've had on me.
Yeah.
And so those two institutions are it's a perfect example of what I call a symbiotic relationship. Neither one can exist without the other. But so that's kind of on an institutional level. But on a deeper level, you have these students who come in from Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Aotearoa, or New Zealand, as they like to say, Tahiti, Hawaii, and they come in from Micronesia, from Asia, all over the Asia Pacific Rim, a lot from well, like the Philippines. Okay,
Hmm.
and this is really their story. This is the story of incoming freshmen to outgoing seniors, and we've selected a few students that we kind of follow through the course of a year, their struggles, what they struggled, what they've had to overcome to get there, to stay there, and to graduate from there. And in that journey, as you might imagine, in any collegiate journey, you're going to have struggles along the way. There's going to be kids that are homesick. There's going to be kids that are, especially if they're performers, that have body awareness. Am I too fat? Am I too skinny? Do I fit in with the rest of these Polynesian kids that are so big? Even though I'm Polynesian, I'm smaller, maybe.
Hmm.
There's going to be a whole host of issues, balancing school, balancing their social life with they got to be able to PCC to perform. And so we don't, we really we kind of take a look behind that curtain and explore little pieces of the night show, for example, but we spend more time behind the stage because there's a completely different story going on. And so we're back when they're doing those quick changes and they're bumping into each other, and it it's chaos. It's chaos in what is it? It's the word I'm looking for.
Beauty and
It's
chaos.
chaotic.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Out on the front, it just comes off clean and pristine, and it is a Broadway in terms of its production value. It's a Broadway caliber show for sure.
Hmm.
And I've been, abroad, so I think I can say that confidently. But behind the scenes, when you realize the fact that on any given night, these students are playing different roles because some might not be able to make it because they've got exams and then they've got to backfill. So we follow the whole audition process, and we follow them as they try out, and most of them don't make it, so they got to go work somewhere else. Some of them do. And then, of course, you pair that with there's the night show aspect, and you pair that with the 6 villages that exist. For those that haven't been to the PCC, it's kind of like a little. There's individual 6 individual village themes. So you walk into a little slice of New Zealand, Aotearoa or Samoa or Tonga or Hawaii or Fiji, and the villages are staffed by and large with kids that are from those cultures. So
Hmm.
they try to keep it very as authentic as possible. And I don't know what the ratio is, but I would say for the most part, it's 90% staffed with the kids from those areas. So in the Tahiti village, you're going to get Tahitians for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing the culture that they've grown up with, that they love. In the night show, it's a little more convoluted because you might have Samoans dancing in the Tahitian section and vice versa. And they actually do that by design. And that's a whole nother thing, but that we do explore. But it's just a behind the scenes look. And by learning what these kids go through, we get a sense of, wow, when I walk into PCC, this is all the stuff that I don't get to see necessarily when I visit there. So it's just a behind the scenes look.
So, how did it come about? And I guess the reason for that question, were you like, I'd really like a warm place to work for a few months in the winter months, from Utah. Is there a story? I don't know. We'll get out there. We'll figure something out. Was it the church came to you and said, hey, this is tremendous, and I don't think that people know about it? Is it a separate budget and the Polynesian Cultural Center was like, make a commercial, and then you're like, there was something more behind it? How did we get to sharing Aloha?
There was Randy Rigby, Randy and his wife, Sandra Rigby, who Randy, if you recognize that name, he was the president of Utah Jazz. And so he ran Larry H. Miller Entertainment. So he was over the racetrack and jazz, and he didn't run the automobile division. That was Larry's thing. He called me one day and said, hey, there's a group of people who really want to see this movie made. So I guess for lack of a deeper discussion, I'll just call them friends of the PCC, got together, raised some money with the PCC support, opening their doors and all that. And they said, hey, we really feel like we've got a story here to tell. I had been to the PCC before. I'd shot at the PCC before.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, this is interesting. And at first I was thinking, well, I'm going to help you maybe find somebody that could help you make this, because I'm trying to retire and slow down. But I got out there and I got reacquainted with these kids, and I kind of drank the Kool-Aid. I got absorbed into it. And so it then transitioned into, hey, I think I want to make this, because I'd been to the PCC before, as I mentioned, but I'd never really I hadn't spent a lot of time backstage. And so the approach was, let me just take some time to interview and get to know these kids, because I really think that's where your story is. They said, great. And so they did not tell me at any point, this is how it needs to be. They said, just let it wash over you, and let's just, you experience the PCC like anybody else, except you're going to have a little more exclusive access, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And just come back to us with your thoughts. And so I did over time. I mean, I'm oversimplifying some things here, but I went back to them with some thoughts, and I think we all felt, and they agreed early on. It wasn't like a hard sell at all.
Mm-hmm.
That it really needs to be about the students. It really needs to be about their journey, as opposed to some institutional message. And it needs to be honest. It needs to be authentic, and documentary driven. We had a choice to make. Do we want to make it more like a reality TV show? No, because there's more to this story than just a reality TV show where they bend and twist things to make it more entertaining. We didn't do that. I just felt like we didn't need to do that. We can just show these kids as they are. But the key was, we needed to spend enough time with them to see them go through these transitions and the difficulties and the peaks and valleys that they go through.
Mm-hmm.
And so fortunately for me, they let me have the time to do that. And so we shot over a period of, I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to say 6 to 8 months, where we would shoot for 2 or 3 weeks. We'd take a few weeks off, go back, shoot for 2 or 3 weeks, take a few weeks off, or longer period off.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that. We had like 5 or 6 shooting periods. And then we also went home with some of these kids. So we went home with Leilani, one of our main featured students, back to Tonga. We went back and we did the same thing with one of our students from Fiji. And there was also a kid who's he's Samoan, but he's from Las Vegas. And so by so doing, we kind of get the overall sense of what the general student experience might be like for somebody going to the BYU Hawaii and then participating in either the night show or dancing in one of the villages during the day.
Going back to kind of what we talked about in the first block, where you're talking about you would never want to do something that would be harmful. I know that the vast majority of people's experience, both at BYU, schools in general, BYU, Hawaii specifically, and also the Polynesian Cultural Center, is very positive. But being a person of the same faith and knowing that the money is coming from people who very much want to see this to be positive. How do you balance knowing, hey, this is probably most people's experience, but there are people that this is awful, horrible. They feel whatever sort of taken advantage of, marginalized, whatever the thing may be. How do you balance that to where you're like, I'm being authentic, but I also can't be causing harm to who's paying my paycheck?
Right. Well, and I'm glad you asked that question, because that was really one of the first things we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know there are people out there who feel like it's cultural appropriation. We know there are people out there who feel like, hey, maybe you're exploiting these students. We know that they're out there. So we had to deal with those issues head on, and we take them head on, I feel. And I feel like we give it the appropriate screen time, or the right proportion of screen time, given the actual attitudes and beliefs that there are about the PCC. So
Mm-hmm.
having said that, in my experience, in fact, I did this I wanted to do this segment where I had hidden cameras. We had the technology now we can hide cameras. And I was going to obscure the faces of the people talking. And we did this for like 2 or 3 days. Went all over, we interviewed people who were walking in and out of hotels in Waikiki and all up and down the North Shore, concierge people, taxi drivers, people on bikes, the gamut. And I was even leading them. I was trying to get them to say negative stuff about the PCC so I could get a sense for what the local community really felt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think we got about 200 people on camera that we had intended to obscure their image, so they will never know who they are. And I think of those 200, we may have had, I'm thinking, 3 or 4 comments that were negative.
Hmm.
So it's like we did a secret shopper kind of a thing, right?
Sure.
And I thought, man, I thought we were going to get some better stuff, because I wanted to kind of set it up so that we could then address it. And I couldn't use that in the film because we just couldn't find. So bottom line is, there are those people out there who feel that way, but it's certainly not a widely held belief. And it's even gets narrower when you ask people who've actually been there and experienced it. Most of those beliefs come from people who have heard something from somebody who really hasn't spent much time there or hasn't been there at all. So with respect to, I think what in my personal experience, it is incredibly authentic the way we approached it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that, the fact that they have these students who are from Tonga dancing the culture of another, it actually helps those Tongan students when they're dancing in the Samoan section. And we talk about this in the film. They take dancing the culture of another probably even more serious than dancing their own, because they know they need to do it right. So that brings understanding. And when it brings understanding, it brings peace. And so when I grew up in Southern California as a kid, I was told, oh, the Samoans and the Tongans, they don't get along, they fight. And I had seen that at my school.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that. I'm not saying that doesn't exist at the PCC, but you don't see it as much, because they learn to respect the culture of the other. And so that's what, in my mind, is what diversity and the beauty of diversity does, is you actually are learning the culture of another. So we deal with those issues in the film. And so I'll let you be the judge. When you see it, you can be the judge if we've dealt with it enough. Some people might feel we spent too much time on it, but you're going to please everybody, and that's okay. But at least we do explore it for sure.
When we talk about the mission of the Polynesian Cultural Center, what it was originally set out to do, and then where it is here now in the 21st century, I'm imagining this was filmed 2023, 24, 25.
23.
Tell me, do you feel like it has gone and grown beyond the scope of what they ever could have imagined? Is it right in line? Is it served the purpose that it initially had served and now is serving an even deeper, greater purpose? Talk to me about that.
There was a section that we thought, and we had to pull it out because, a 90-minute film. I mean, this could have been 3 hours long. In fact, the first cut of
Easily.
it was. So we don't spend a lot of time in the history of it, but in the making of that section, I learned that it went from performers who are on the North Shore, actually out on the road waving people in, come see our shows, and they didn't charge anything, or if they did, it was so nominal, but they just wanted people to come in and see the shows. Because they wanted to eventually get to the point where they were self-sustaining financially. B, they wanted to share their culture. They really do love to share their culture. It's a beautiful culture. To where it is today, I think that there are prophets who actually foresaw that it would be this big and
Mhm.
that would lead to the day when it is self-sustaining like it is now, and not having to be subsidized to the extent that it was back in the early days by the church. So I think that there are those who had a vision for it, for what it could become, and are probably not surprised. If they were living today, they'd say, yep, we saw this all along. This is what it could be.
Mhm.
But when you compare the early days to where it is now, from the little bit of stills that I saw and early black and white footage, it's dramatic. And I don't think anybody of that ilk would have ever foreseen that it would be as big as it is now. It's the number one uh, paid visitor attraction in Hawaii right now.
Yeah, of
And
all things, not of
and
things
that's
LDS, like more than Pearl Harbor,
right.
more than, this, that, the other. It is the most visited thing on the Hawaiian Islands.
And the Hawaiian Islands are, of course, one of the largest tourist destinations, at least in the United States. Still, they're still in the top. And so that's another thing that we talk about in the film too, is this, that trying to balance. And I as I get a chance to talk to government officials, and this will be brought out in the film. There's a real kind of there's a real struggle in Hawaii because you have the locals who live there and they see tourists come in and tearing up their roads and you know jamming up traffic and breathing the air, and polluting the air. They know on one hand that that tourist revenue helps build those roads, but on the other hand, they want to preserve their culture.
Sure.
So I think that the move now is to more responsible tourism, where when you go to Hawaii, just be aware that if you're going to go off trail, if I keep it simple, don't litter the place. Be mindful of where you're tracking, and don't go off track, and be respectful of the land that you're on, because this is their land. So there's a balance there in Hawaii. And so I think most everybody feels, not everybody, but most everybody feels like the PCC overall and the footprint that it creates is a net positive for the community.
Well,
Again, not everybody feels that way.
and certainly, I think that within just the last decade, certainly the last 5 years, as it seems, the church is taking on some initiatives to be a little bit more green, a little bit more solar driven, some of these other things, not only here in Utah, but across the world. I think that you'll see continual effort being put into things like that. One of the things that I love about the PCC that to me makes me wish that there were other PCCs, if you'll allow that as a kind of a term, that like this is an out of the box thinking to be able to provide not only jobs, but also education, to have the infrastructure for the BYU Hawaii. And it has been a tremendous success. And we don't have anything else like it anywhere else. And I think that there are things that could play like this for the church. I mean, again, you'd go through some growing pains. You would definitely be looking at some things and go, nah, man, we shouldn't have done it that way. But it seems so out of the box from the rest of the church that we keep in a box that I guess I sort of wish that there were more of it, and hope that the film becomes wildly popular and go, well, maybe we should try this, whatever this
Well,
may be.
I think you've hit it on the head. I think when people go see the film, first of all, again, I'm biased, of course, but I guarantee you, you're going to be touched by it. You're going to be touched by more than one or two of the students that you meet, and there's a whole handful of them. And you're going to realize, you might have kind of an academic understanding that, okay, this is what they do at the PCC, and yeah, it funds their education. But when you really get to know these students, and you get to care about them, and you get to love them, and you get to go home with them and meet their families and where they come from, and for some of them, very impoverished situations, you really grow to love. That's, man, I want to go there because I just want to go there to support them. Now
Mhm.
I'm going to look at them in a new light that I didn't from a new perspective that I didn't have before. Um, and they are a model. I mean, how much has there been in the press lately about student debt? You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
uh, and about being green. Well, the PCC is completely self-sustaining. They're at the end of their power grid. They're at the end when they have these power outages, and they're pretty frequent on that side of the island. PCC just keeps rolling along because they're running either off battery or off when they have to. They've got these big generators, but they've got solar panels all over the place in their parking lots. And so I don't know if they're 100%, off the grid, or if they
Mhm.
could be,
Mhm.
but they're certainly close to it. So again, they're a net positive from that respect as well. But these kids go in with no money, and they come out with a 4-year degree. So if they're willing to work 19 hours a week and in the villages and at the night show, they get the equivalent of what used to be a Division I football scholarship is. I mean, and they even get health care. So, and it talks about that in the film, and certainly there's the positive aspects of that as well, in addition to the challenges that they face in order to get that. It's not easy, but it shouldn't be. Anything that's worth it is going to take work. So there, and we don't hide that fact. But think about it: for 19 hours a week, when school's in session, you get a 4-year degree, and when school's not in session, if you're not going home, you're working 40 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to share your culture. You get, and I think the film will bring this out, but it's the equivalent of about $50 an hour
Mm.
when you figure out all the compensation that the students get. Now they don't get $50 an hour.
No.
Compare that to working with, at the fast food place next to the PCC. Not to demean those, but compare what you get, and it's just there is no comparison.
Well, it's an investment in the students and in the community that is far different than I got a job and now I got to go, move these fries or whatever the thing may
And I
be.
do need to say that I want to get this in because this is important. Um, when you go see this film, when you support this film, you are literally supporting the students who go to school there. So people need to understand that all the proceeds, net, the distribution costs that we have, uh, all flow back to scholarships because that was one of the goals of the people who first funded this. They say we want our efforts to all go back to help fund future generations. It's kind of like a perpetual education fund
Yeah.
model. And so when you go buy a ticket to go see this, or whether you watch it on streaming, wherever it ends up, and you rent it, all the money that would have gone back to either myself as the filmmaker, as the production company, that gets passed through. I'm not taking one. I was paid to make the film, to
Mhm.
be clear, totally transparent. But in my situation, usually the real money comes in on the back end. I am at a point where I'm not taking any of that. That's all going to go straight to the PCC, and I couldn't be happier about that. I'm thrilled about it. So I do hope that people, when they go see it, they realize it's more than just some entertainment, and you will be entertained. It's that money is going to go back, all of it, to the PCC and help scholarship these kids.
So a question that I would have then seems obvious. So let's get after it. I want to support the film, and I got bags of money, canvas bags with dollar signs on both sides. I've stolen them from a bank, but whatever. How do I support this film?
Well, we believe in organic, authentic, word of mouth is going to be the best thing. So keep the money in your pocket for now.
Okay.
Go to the website, and sign up your name. There's a place where you can sign up your name, and then of course we're going to sell your name to the highest bidder. Right? No, I'm just
Sure,
kidding.
sure. That
Oh,
information.
it'll be. I've told people it's going to be put away in a hermetically sealed vault. So if they go to the website, I'm sure you probably put in your show notes, but it's sharingalohadhamovie.com,
Hmm.
and sign up your name. And if you scroll, and then you can be informed about when and where it's going to come out. So we don't know yet. We're now, based on the success we had at Zion Indie Film Fest, we're talking to a couple of distributors right now. I've got meetings set up this afternoon, in fact. So that's where we are in the process. I think what's going to happen, my projection is that it could see a limited theatrical release in certain select markets,
Sure.
and eventually it's going to end up where the world can see it on a major streamer, either through Amazon Prime, Hulu, Roku, Netflix, one of those, and it'll also filter down into other markets, secondary markets, PBS, BYU TV. So it'll be out there for a while, but just know that wherever you see it, if it does come out theatrically, boy, go that first weekend. If it comes to your area, go that first weekend, because then what that does is it sets the algorithm, it gets the attention of Hollywood, and then it gets a much higher placement when it does get on the streaming services. So, but I don't want to, I don't want to burden the viewers, your listening audience with all that. But if it does come out in the theater and you've got the wherewithal to go lay down some cash and go see it, by all means, go see it for sure. And then just watch for it. But the thing that you can do that doesn't cost you anything other than time is to watch the trailer. It's
Hmm.
on that Meet the Mormons, or not Meet the Mormons. There we go.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Flashback. Go to sharingalohadhamovie.com, and you'll see where you can enter your name. But if you scroll a bit further down, you'll see the trailer.
Hmm.
So it's a 2-minute movie trailer. And if you like it, share the link with your friends, talk about it. And that's the thing that we really need, is just that organic word of mouth to have it grow. And that perhaps even as much as laying money down to see it at the theater will help us in just getting the word out. The goal, once the word's out, it makes more money. That
Sure.
money goes into scholarship funds, and it's more available. There's a larger chunk of money available for students to
Yeah.
have scholarship.
Yeah, one of the things that I like, constantly within the news, you're hearing about how everything costs more, and everyone's like, "Geez, I don't have enough money. I'm having eggs for breakfast or going to see your movie, Blair. I'm not sure which." People can use their social capital, the influence that they have in the people that are around them, and just be able to be like, "Hey, check this out. I think this is cool. When does it come out? I don't know, but won't it be cool? We should go." Super excited. Let's keep an eye. Even just the awareness of that, I think, is absolutely awesome. There will be a link in the show notes that people will be able to click and watch and be able to share that with other folks as well. Give the information, and then you hit on it, but I like to hit on it again. If it does, and most likely this would be like Jello Belt, I would imagine, releases as far as theater goes, the Intermountain West to be able to see, and I would imagine probably some Larry Miller property, Megaplex things.
It'll
If
probably, my guess would be probably, it could go East Coast. It could go north and northern, southern California, throughout Texas. There could be some spots up in Alaska. So it could have a fairly, we'll have to see. Could have
Yeah,
a fairly, certainly it's going to be released in the islands. I think
sure.
it's going to be available. It might even be available there first.
Hmm.
That would be kind of really cool because that lends authenticity to it, as it should.
Mhm.
It's kind of the PCC is a gift to us from the islands. I think the movie itself could be a gift to us. So it may not even be released here on the Wasatch Front first. I just don't know yet. We'll have
Sure,
to see.
sure.
And that's assuming it does get a theatrical, but I think it will go beyond just Ogden to St. George. It's going to
Sure,
go.
sure, sure, sure. But regardless of wherever and however, right? If it does do that, spend money and buy a ticket and go see it. And I always tell people, and take this for what it is intended. If you can't go, still buy a ticket. You would much rather that we go watch it, but still go buy a ticket for that, because money speaks to the people that would put the film in theaters. So obviously, go see it. You want people to see it. It's an amazing story that people need to be able to observe. But if you're like, that weekend can't, still buy a ticket. You're not off the hook. Buy a ticket so that it can be there for another weekend.
Well,
Then you
good
can
for
go
you.
watch it.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Yeah.
And we're probably talking sometime, midsummer by the time
Mhm.
that comes out. So,
Okay. Okay.
but
Well,
if you
fingers.
sign up on the website, you'll find out. We'll actually send out notices of where it's going and where it's playing. And I should mention it is playing down in Orlando at the International Christian Film Festival on May 1st
Okay.
at like 3 in the afternoon. But that'll be up on the website, sharingalohathemovie.com. And so all the subsequent promotional screenings that we're having is going to be up on that website. So if you go to that website, sign up your name, you'll just automatically be informed about where it's coming.
I love it. Let's take another break. When we come back, maybe there's some future projects that are coming that we can find out about. See what retirement is like, empty nesting. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of what that might be like. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Coming back in the third block of the Cultural Hall. I had an email from someone who listens to the Cultural Hall. I believe it was not a lifer, but a convert, who said, "Hey, Richie, are you still teaching the podcast classes?" And the answer is yes. In fact, I have even fine-tuned it more than I ever had before. So you might be asking, well, Richie, how do I get on that? Well, you can always email contact@theculturalhall.com, or you can find me on social media wherever I'm at, Richie T. Stedman, and reach out and say, "Hey, I listen to the Cultural Hall. I would love to learn more about podcasting or your podcasting services, a class, a cohort." There's a group of people. I've even taught the ward historian about podcasting, what it is and how it might be a great benefit to people. If that's something that you're interested in, whether it's for your business or just for your private hobby, maybe something you see your future in, would love to be able to help you along the way. You can find me again anywhere on social media, Richie T. Stedman, or you can just contact us, contact@theculturalhall.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Let us podcast together. To be clear, this is still a show. Here in the third block of the Cultural Hall, remember, just like going to a movie on opening weekend, the Cultural Hall, we'd like money too. You can go to patreon.com/the Cultural Hall, and you can become a Patreon saint. There is the celestial level, the terrestrial level, and the telestial level, all of which are various increments that you do a month. We always like to tell people it's putting your money where your ears are. And also, because it's a tremendous amount of time, Blair and I were chatting when we weren't recording. 1,000 episodes is a lot of my life, and your money lets me know that you're appreciative of it. And trust me when I say that I'm not getting rich by it, but I do like it. It is a passionate thing. And when people come through and say, "Hey, you know what? We believe in this too," and make that pledge or do the money there, it does mean a lot. So go to patreon.com/, the cultural hall. And remember, all Patreon saints get to be a part of the secret but not sacred Facebook group where we're all hanging out. So patreon.com/, the cultural hall. Blair, obviously you are in the everything about this film. But if I know creative types like yourself, you also have something that you're looking toward in the future. Can you tease me with what that might be?
I am so focused. This is legit. I'm so focused on getting this movie out where people can see it and to the most eyeballs as
Mhm.
possible. I'm not even looking to the next thing right now. And
But
that's,
but but
I'm really
Blair,
not.
you've got to have something in the back of your mind where you're like, I did hear that one story that time, and I do think that might be kind of cool.
No, honestly, I'm focused on this 100%, at least for the next 3 or 4 months. Once it gets out there and the machine gets, and it kind of takes over, then I think I'll probably take a little vacation and then
Mhm.
I'm going to see if I want to do a permanent retirement. I tell people that I'm retiring. It's so funny. Everybody around me just laughs. It's like, what? You can't, no, I can retire. I mean, I'm an old guy. I mean, I'm like, just look at me. Take a look. Look at these bags. Okay.
Oh, come on
I
now.
look a lot different than when I came on when you only had done 100 episodes or whatever. How many
Sure.
episodes is it
It,
between
it
us?
now it's been nine. This is 905. You came on 145, so that's 11 years. You've
Okay.
aged a bit, so have I.
But no, I honestly, I wish I had another thing to tease, but right now I'm just going to take it. I'm in a situation where I'm not having to take something next. I've been able to, during the Disney days, I was able to sock a little bit away and do some other investing and whatnot. So I'll just focus on that for a while and we'll see where life takes us. I mean, I think the man upstairs will he'll direct that
Yeah.
and we'll just see where it
He has a
takes
way
us.
of utzing. Let me ask you this about that. Uh, Spouses are a critical part of things like this. If
Mhm.
for no other reason than when you have had the worst day on set or whatever the thing is that you're creatively pursuing, they have a way of being like, you are great, you are valued, you are loved, and sort of this grounding. Is it harder for you to put something in front of a audience at large or in front of your wife?
Oh, that's easy. It's much harder for me to put something in front of my wife
And how did,
because she's tough.
yeah,
She's a tough audience. And that's what I want her to be. I say that, but I say now, be honest, but don't really be honest. Be honest, but don't really, you know.
yeah,
But no, she's tough. She's a creative person, and she's a dancer she came through BOU Ballroom, and all of our kids, when I was out making movies, when they weren't traveling with me, they were learning ballroom through her, and they've all become professional ballroom dancers. And she runs her own nonprofit, so she's busier than I am.
mhm,
She runs a dance thing called Dance and School Education Foundation, and she has anywhere, depending on the year, anywhere between 18 to 25 schools that go through a program. And so she's always at her desk doing administrative stuff. And then they have events. They just had a big event yesterday, and she's had 10,000 kids come through her ballroom dance program. And these are
wow,
programs that are run in the public school system. So she's busy running her nonprofit, and I'm out here on the side doing film stuff. So it's not a question of when I'm going to slow down. It's like, when is she going to slow down? I think as soon as she slows down, I probably will be more encouraged to slow down. But
sure,
I know that if she continues to do that and I'm out here on the side, I'm probably going to either have to take another film or go on a big trip somewhere. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah. Man, it seems like a couple, and I know that there are people within the church that listen to this. This is a couple that is ready to be mission presidents, ready to
Oh,
be.
no, no, no,
Oh
no,
no, come
no.
on,
I am not
yeah.
mission president
No,
material.
come on.
I had a great
You
mission, but I am not mission president.
you
I'll tell
are
you, you should have her on
communication
your show.
specialist.
You should have Cheryl on your show. She could talk your ear off about the benefits of ballroom dance for kids, ages, elementary up through junior high. You should have her on. I'll talk to
Absolutely.
you.
I would love to do an episode not only just about dance or ballroom dance specific, but arts in schools
Yeah.
and how that continues to be something that seems to be fading away, but that anyone who participates in it at all is like, this is the greatest thing. And yet, well, it doesn't make any money like the football team does. We don't have, those kind of things. Um, there are three questions we ask everyone who steps into the cultural hall. Let me ask those of you. I don't know if we did this before. Doesn't matter because they've likely changed your answers anyway. The first question is do you have a calling right now? And if so, what is it?
My calling is I fill in and teach elders quorum from time to time. We just moved recently, well, in the last, 18 months, 2 years. And since I've been on the road so much, I don't know very many people in my own ward because I've spent so much time out on the road. So I say that in fairness to our good bishop, who probably would have something for me if I was more available.
Mhm.
But I've had callings all the way through, nonstop. This is just a part of my life where I have a little more open time.
Sure.
So I do teach, but it's been like, your question wasn't the callings I've had.
Yeah, no,
The,
just what are you doing right now? And it's, you get to be the one that's like, hey, so and so didn't show up today. You ready to teach? Let's go. And you're here. If
yeah.
you could
Okay.
if you could pick a calling for yourself, either one that exists or make one up, what would you pick?
Well, it's a calling I've already had. I mean, I love being gospel doctrine teacher. Uh, and it's for selfish reasons. It's because it forces me to study.
Hmm.
I'm not a studier or an academic by nature. I'm only studying something if I kind of have to sit down and learn about it because I'm making a film about it, right?
Hmm.
And for me, that's what teaching does. So when they ask me to teach a lesson on a particular topic, or when I'm a regular teacher, it forces me to do what I ordinarily wouldn't do on my own. And that is very fulfilling. So, and I love teaching gospel doctrine. So that's probably what I would do.
What year of gospel doctrine would you teach? You got to pick one year, one of the years. Which would you teach?
Well, I was fortunate. I got to do it for 6 years. So I got through all the courses multiple times, but
Sure.
I love Book of Mormon.
Okay.
I'd probably teach that. And
Yeah.
that was very helpful to me when we were doing, you asked me about other fulfilling series. And, I've been on 2 cycles of the Book of Mormon series, back in the 90s when we did it. And then we just did it recently. I was a director on that. And that was very fulfilling. Third Nephi is, doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this final question. We ask everyone, but we ask you to interpret it however you would like. The question is, what is your favorite part of your faith?
I think I have just a very tiny inkling understanding of what eternal progression might be with in my limited earthly experience. And if I could put it in these terms, it would be something along the lines of, when you do something really well, if you're the world's greatest, I'm just going to throw out an arbitrary, if you're the world's greatest or one of the world's greatest welders, okay, when you see a perfectly beaded weld, or if you're a really good engineer and you drive across that suspension bridge, you can appreciate all the math and all the work that went into building that bridge, or the guy who welded that. And when you learn something really well, you appreciate it more on a deeper level than anybody else on the planet. So imagine what it's like to be Heavenly Father for just a minute. He knows everything about everything. Imagine the joy he gets when we use whatever talents that we've been given for his purposes. And that to me is when one of my kids does something that's positive, that's good. Fortunately, they generally are good and they do good things. That brings me joy. So I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I just feel like um, that's when you learn to do something really well. And if you're the kind of person that has learned to do a whole bunch of things well, you appreciate those things. So when I watch a movie that's really well made, even if I disagree with its premise, I appreciate, I think, on a deeper level than maybe perhaps the guy sitting next to me who doesn't know anything about movie making.
Mhm.
I appreciate that on a deeper level. And I think that's where real joy comes from. So that's the part of the faith that gives me that, and the recognition that any talent that I have is not mine. It's on loan. I believe that 100%. and it can be taken from me. I mean, there's times where I got nothing creatively. It's like I'm working and my head's against the wall, and it's like I got nothing because my head's not right, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think the recognition that the talents that we have are on loan from God, and so when somebody says to you, like they may say to you, "Man, you've got a great talent for drawing out of guests what they need to say," or "You've got a great voice." You can do two things. You can say, "Oh, well, shucks, thanks," you know, or you can accept it in a true spirit of, "Well, thank you. That's kind," and then acknowledge that it's on loan.
Yeah.
It's on loan. You know, if you're a handsome guy, you didn't do anything to earn that. That's
Oof.
your parents, and you got that from the Almighty. You know, so whatever talents I may have as a storyteller, they're on loan. They don't belong to me, and I just want to be able to use them. I gave you a really long-winded answer. I
No, I
apologize for
thought it
that.
was perfect. You worry too much. I think it's perfect because of it is from you, and I can't answer for you. Only you can answer for you. And I thought it was beautifully said. Remember to go to Sharing Aloha the movie. You can find a link to it in the show notes. Check out the trailer. Give the information that is necessary. Name and email address, right? And then people can find out all the stuff about when it may be coming to an area near them, or where it's going to be distributed, or all of those things. And we'll get a change.org petition for Blair and Cheryl to be mission presidents. We'll get that started today. That's
No,
not
stop.
that's not how mission president callings work, but who knows? We'll work on that. Blair, I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body. That if you are not healthy enough to listen this week, that you will be healthy enough to listen next week, and that when the time comes, you will be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row.